So here were the instructions that we had, and last class we graphed and put this information in, and this is where we had ended up. Now if you still have that information in your calculator, see if you can get your histogram to come up again. So yeah, the instructions. So what you have to do is change your window to the width height. So I want your graph to look like this. I had to change my window a couple times. I made it a little bit wider.
What do I have to change this? Because like this is what I'm getting right now. I think I'm missing something.
So once you've done zoom stat, you want to change your window so that the X scale is equal to the class width. And our class width is 20. So that means on your calculator, when you go to window, you need to have your X scale at 20. One thing I wanted to show you is once you have your data in with your mid-interval value in list 1 and your frequency in list 2, I mean, you can figure out your mean by saying there's 40 at 10, 70 at 30, and so on. Adds up to 270 things in total, so we can find our average this way. I wanted to show you that you could also find your average, now that we've got this data in our list, by going stat, over to calculate, and have list 1 and frequency in list 2. Oops. And you can see that you get the 44.1 as your average that way as well. So anytime you have your data in a list and a frequency in list 2, then you can get your average this way as well. So you can use the formula and multiply everything out, or if it's quicker to put it into your calculator, you can do that as well. This is a unit where both get used a fair bit. You should know how to use your calculator so that when you need to figure it out fast, you can. And you need to know how the formulas work so that if a question asks you something about using the formula, you can do that as well. So here's our second example. Number of hours per day students spend sleeping. So think, where would you fit in to this? Between 1 and 3, 3 and 5, 9 and 11, or are you off the charts? You get 15 hours of sleep every night. Soon as school ends, that's the first thing you do. You go straight home, go to bed, don't wake up till 8 the next morning, get here just on time. So if we take the frequency and add it all up, we get 34. Is this data discrete or continuous? Okay, well, you've got to be a little bit careful here. Could you sleep 2.32 hours? Yes. Right? There's a bunch of different times that are possible. Right? It's not like people sleep only in 10-minute intervals, so that if you didn't wake up, you won't be waking up for another 9 minutes. So in this case, if you think of it that way, this data would be continuous because any value is possible in those hours. And the data that we're looking at is the number of hours of sleep. We're not looking at the number of students as our data. Now, if you wanted to get an estimate of the mean, you would take the mid values of each of them and multiply by how many students were in that. So there were 2 students that would, on average, sleep 2 hours. 7 students that slept 4 hours, and so on. And putting those values through, you get an average of 7.35. Which seems like nice. I could use 7 and a bit hours of sleep. See if you can get that into your calculator to produce that histogram. Well, I'll just show it to you. So here's our last example. That is a lot of data. Okay? Now, you could, if you wanted a really accurate data, you could enter in all of that data. But if you fill it in as a frequency chart, and I've got them all counted out there for you, in age groups of 5, that's how many were of each one. So again, you could pick the mid-interval value of each of these, put this into your calculator. So 27.5, 32.5, and so on. We're not going to do that right now just to save some time. And then you could multiply it all out or use your calculator to get the average for the mean value, which happens to be about 44 years. But it's just more of the same, so we're not going to take a lot of time on this question.